On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1975. We're going to be taking a look at Orleans, and they're going to be performing Dance With Me. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So let's get the guys up on screen and see how they get on.
Started, night is calling, and I am falling. Dance with me. Fantasy could never be so killing. I feel free. I hope that you are willing. Pick the beat up and pick your feet up. Dance with me. All around us, I can take you where you want to go. Oh, dance with me. I want to be your partner. Can't you see? The music is just starting. Night is calling, and I am falling. Dance with me.
I'm just going to jump in here during the melodica solo. As always, the link to this video is going to be in the description below, so you guys can check it out there without me interrupting it. But this is one of those old school performances, old school bands who are so tight live, not only instrumentally but vocally as well. And when I say that they're an old school band, I think what I'm referring to is the fact that they play an instrument and they sing as well. And we have 3 vocalists in the band. It's something that was most prevalent in the 60s and the 70s. Guys who were in bands played instruments as well and sang, and that's just the deal. That's just how it was. Whereas nowadays, unfortunately on TV, a band can be just a collection of vocalists, and they don't really play an instrument. They are literally just vocalists. So when I say about them being an old school band, that's what I mean. Just while we've got the melodica in shot, it's not one of those instruments you see a hell of a lot of nowadays, but if you don't know what it is, it's a keyboard version of a harmonica, effectively, because you can see the way that Larry Hoppen, who's playing it at the moment, is blowing into a tube, and that is connected to it. And when the air flows through the tube, it goes into the melodica, and when you press down a key, that opens up the hole for the air to flow through and the corresponding note sounds. That's a simplified version of it, but that's what we're hearing, and we can see as well the microphone that is right by it in order to pick up that sound. Just from a technical perspective, I'm sure you guys have already noticed that the pitch towards the top end of that melodica is a little bit flat, but then is more accurate in the middle, and it's just one of those instruments that is air flowing through a hole, and it's pretty light, it's not really sturdy, it is what it is as an instrument. We are going to be jumping into the guitar parts briefly with that intro riff, which is just based around fills in D, if you do want to play along, but also Wells Kelly on drums here, who is singing on the left-hand side of the screen when we've got all three on screen. He's supplying the hi-hat and the foot pedal. It looks like he's not doing anything, but he is supplying that at the same time. Same as the other guys here, because John Hall, when he's playing the intro and then gets into singing, continues on that rhythm. And the final name that I haven't mentioned yet on bass is Lance Hoppen, and that is Larry's brother. And Larry's playing the melodica, as I've just mentioned. So I've just got the guitar out to show you guys a few of the chords. Also, the intro that we have. It's so melodic, it's so memorable, and once you've heard this song as a whole, you're going to be singing it all day because it's so melodic all the way through this composition. But we're starting in D, and we have this sus2, sus4 fill sound where we have like that. Interestingly, when John plays this, he's playing double stops, which means that he's just playing a couple of strings at a time and he's higher up the fretboard. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to show you a simplified way of doing it and then show you how John's doing it. But melodically, we've got and that's our first half of the riff, the intro, and it is melodic. We've got this rundown. Obviously, I'm playing this with the chord shapes, and John isn't playing it like that. But it just goes to show that if you do want to play it down at the bottom of the guitar, you can do. You just have to be a little bit more careful with your picking, but you can still get those notes to pop out. So just showing you what John's playing, he's got his first finger on the 5th fret of the B string and his second finger on the 6th fret of the G string. And then he's strumming down from his D chord and leaving his high E string open. He then hammers on the 7th fret with his 3rd finger and his little finger. I don't want this to turn into an instructional video, but he then hops his first finger over to the high E string in order to get this A on the high E, which will give it a slightly different sound. So we have this, and put in the actual rhythm as well. Like that. It's the very first phrase. This is where we get into the double stops, where we have this. And again, the double stop's just holding down 2 strings at once, but then hitting the D string and the high E as well. You can probably get away with hitting the A string during that. Then we continue on with the double stops with that same upstroke in there. And now we move down to E minor and little fill. We're working our way back up. And then we're probably back to where we started. It's something like that. But we've got this whole descension down, all the way down to an E minor at the bottom, all the way back up to where we started with the D. And because of the nature of the voicings that are being used here, it means that we're covering such a pitch that it is a journey all the way down to that low E, the lowest note that you can get on the guitar, all the way back up to our A. The other thing that we've got in there is that really straightforward rhythm on the beat. So when John starts up, it's this jumping from the root note of the chord to the rest of the chord. So he's starting on that D string and then jumping up to the rest of the chord. Like that. Obviously, once the riff then comes in, the bass keeps that note just droning out on the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we get that. And then when we change to the G, you get the idea. But if you are trying to play rhythm along to this, you want to have that. That jump from your root note to the rest of your chord. The other thing to mention just before we jump back into this video is the fact that if you were listening to this and not watching it, you could imagine that there's a band playing and this is just 3 guys holding microphones and harmonizing with each other, let alone playing instruments themselves at the same time. So it gives you an idea of the ability on show here in order to nail these harmonies live as well. This is just, years and years of gigging, being on the road, and getting these harmonies down, getting them so tight. But let's watch the performance until the end. And there we have it. As you can see, the video is just about to cut off. But what a great live version of this song it is. When you listen to the original record, it is so accurate, but it's got the same feel to it. I love the ebb and flow as well in the rhythm and the way that sometimes the tempo is just pushed a little bit, but then they pull it back ever so slightly when they get back into the verse. Really subtle things going on here, but also when Larry's voice is at the forefront and we change to the diminished chord, something that I've mentioned recently as well. I might get the guitar out in a second just to run through that, because it is such a great sound, especially when you've got someone of Larry's ability vocally to supply that melody over the top. So let's jump into this diminished chord that we've got going on, because it makes such a difference when the melody is placed over the top of that vocal. And if you want to know what it is, it's an A sharp diminished, and it's going to sound like this. And the progression is the G into the A, and then into the A sharp diminished, which then leads us into our final B minor. And then we go back to the G, the A, and then back into that tagline of the song, the chorus. So I'll put the vocal melody over the top so you guys can hear how the melody of that vocal interacts with the chords underneath, and especially that A sharp diminished chord. So we've got, I can take you where you wanna go. Whoa, dance with me. And then we're going to be into the chorus. But you can hear how dramatic that is. It's so much better than just going straight from the A to the B minor, to have that A sharp diminished, into our B minor. And it is something that I mentioned in the other video about the diminished chords just being a transitional chord. So you're never going to have lots of diminished chords stacked up one after the next. It's exactly for this kind of situation where that vocal melody stays on the same note, but the chord changes underneath and gives such a different overall sound and impact to that lead vocal. I just realized that you couldn't see the top of the guitar when I was just explaining all that. So for reference, it was a G to your A, to your A sharp diminished, into the B minor. Just like that. So if you wanted the chords, that's what they look like. But this is a top vocal performance. The harmonies are spot on the whole time, and the control as well that we've got vocally. Larry, his vibrato, the control that he has of that stylization. And when his voice does take the spotlight in that section that I just demonstrated, you can get such an appreciation of his quality of tone and his control that he has. We also do have sections in this song where they're not harmonizing with each other, but the three vocals are hitting the same pitch. And I mentioned in other videos about how difficult that is to do, because you all have to hit that pitch dead on. If a couple of guys are flat, it's going to sound really bad. Exactly the same thing if you're sharp. So hitting the same note all dead on is so difficult, but these guys do it here. But just quickly pointing out the fact that with this song, we start out with that melodic riff, the fill shapes, those double stops that I demonstrated, but we jump straight into what you would call the chorus. Straight off the bat, we're into Dance With Me, the tagline of the song, the name of the song, and then as we progress, it's almost as if we get into a middle eight or a bridge, which is where that diminished chord comes in, and then we get back into the chorus. So we have a solo in there as well, of course, but it's just uplifting the whole time because you're always in a chorus, and the only sidetracking from that chorus that we do have is for a solo or that great melodic component that we've just had with that A sharp diminished and Larry's vocal. So it is quite a short song, as we can see here. The video is only 3 minutes and 20 seconds, but what a journey we have, and it is so well executed, just as good as that original record, because these guys are so good live. They just produce this, and somebody turns on the tape, presses record, and this is the sound that you get. As I said, an old school band, just top quality across the board. But thank you guys so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!